All right, imagine this. You've got to build a society completely from scratch. What's your blueprint? What are the rules? Well, today we're going to dive into a 1400-year-old answer to that very question. It's found in one of the most jam-packed chapters of the Quran, Surah An-Nisa, which literally means the women. And trust me, it's a super detailed guide to everything from family law all the way up to the highest principles of justice.
I mean, that's a huge question, right? And for centuries, the answer laid out in this chapter has literally shaped a civilization. So let's break it down. What are the key pieces of this ancient social blueprint?
Okay, so where does it all start? You might think it would begin with a bunch of laws, but no. It kicks off with this really powerful statement about who we are. It sets the stage for the entire community by saying, hey, we all come from the same place.
And this isn't just some fluffy intro, you know? It's the very first verse. So before a single rule is mentioned, this core idea is cemented. Every single person on this planet is part of one big extended family. And that one idea, it's the foundation for every single law that comes after it.
So if we're all one family, what's the first rule? Well, it's to look out for the people who need it most. And the text wastes no time getting to this. It immediately pivots to protecting the vulnerable, especially orphans, and makes that the absolute first pillar of this new society.
And wow, this is an incredibly direct command, especially for back then. It's basically saying, do not take advantage of orphans financially. The language is crystal clear, calling it a great sin, just to hammer home how serious it is. You have to remember, in a world where the weak were often just, well, at the mercy of the strong, this was a radical idea. The law itself was stepping in to be their shield.
And it's not just a vague idea either. It lays out a step-by-step practical guide for anyone who's a guardian. Step 1, protect their stuff. Step 2, when they're old enough, see if they're mature and have good judgment. And step 3, once they're ready, give them their wealth, all of it. It's basically a system of being a trustee, not an owner. Huge difference. All right, so after setting up protections for the vulnerable, the blueprint zooms in on the core building block of society, the family. The chapter gets really specific here, laying out a whole structure for marriage, complete with rights, responsibilities, and even defining who's who in the family tree. And right at the heart of the marriage contract is this thing called the mahr, or the dowry. Now, it's super important to get this right. This is not a bride price that's paid to the family. No, it's a mandatory gift from the husband directly to the wife. It becomes her personal property, giving her a real slice of financial independence.
The text then gets into specific roles within the marriage. Husbands are called qawamun, which is a word that's often translated as protectors and maintainers. Basically, it points to them having the responsibility for financially supporting the family. Wives, on the other hand, are called qanatat, a term that means something like being devoutly obedient and in charge of guarding the home when the husband isn't there. Now, these roles are obviously rooted in the social norms of that time, and they've been talked about and interpreted in so many different ways throughout Islamic history. Then the chapter lays down some really firm boundaries. It gives this whole list of who you can and can't marry. And this wasn't just about preventing incest. It was much bigger than that. It actually formalized the whole structure of the extended family, which created a clear social order that was frankly a massive deal back then.
Okay, now we get to something that was truly revolutionary. I mean, a total game changer for its time. A detailed, mandatory system of inheritance. And here's the kicker. It explicitly gave women the right to inherit. In 7th century Arabia, that was a legal and social earthquake. No exaggeration. See, this system totally replaced the old tribal customs, where pretty much all the wealth just stayed with the men. Instead, the Quran comes in and says, nope, here are fixed, non-negotiable shares for specific family members. The whole point was to make sure that individuals, especially women and kids, couldn't just be ignored or left with nothing.
And these laws are incredibly precise, like down to the fraction. As you can see right here, there are fixed shares for the husband or wife and for the parents. Whatever is left over gets divided among the kids, with a son's share being double a daughter's. Now, that specific rule is often explained by looking at the husband's financial duties we talked about earlier. It's a pretty complex system for sure, but it's a complete mathematical formula designed to be fair and stop arguments before they start.
And the system is really thorough, too. It even covers unique situations like kala. That's a term for someone who dies without any direct heirs. No kids, no parents, no grandkids.
The text has a whole different set of rules just for that scenario, which just goes to show you how deep and detailed this whole system is. So we've gone from the family unit, and now the blueprint zooms out to the entire community. And what's at the very heart of this community? One single overarching principle that has to guide everything: absolute, unwavering justice. This really is the core ethical command for everyone. The Arabic phrase for it is qawaman bilqist, and that means so much more than just, be just. It implies you have to be constantly, actively, and firmly standing up for justice, like it's a central pillar holding up the whole society. And this quote right here, it's the ultimate expression of that idea. Justice has to be absolute. You have to apply it fairly, no matter what, even when it's incredibly hard. Even if it means you have to testify against yourself or your own parents or your closest relatives. The message is clear. Personal feelings and family ties can't get in the way of the truth. So you might be wondering, what's holding all of this up? What's the foundation for all these, frankly, revolutionary social and legal rules? Well, the chapter is very clear that it all comes down to a specific theological bedrock. And here it is. This is the central point that everything else spins around. The principle of pure monotheism, or tawhid, is presented as the one ultimate source of authority. Every single law we've talked about, for orphans, marriage, inheritance, justice, it's all seen as flowing directly from this single core belief. And just to drive home how important this is, the text points out the one sin that is unforgivable: shirk, which is associating partners with God. From the perspective of this text, that is the ultimate spiritual no-no, because it basically undermines the very source of the entire moral and legal system it's trying to build. And that kind of brings us full circle. This blueprint we've walked through in Surah An-Nisa, it's incredibly detailed, it's comprehensive, and yes, it's a product of its time. It gives us this vision of a society that's built on a foundation of divine authority, absolute justice, and protecting the vulnerable. So the big question for us, looking back from today, is this: how does the 7th century text on social justice challenge, or maybe even inform, our own modern ideas about what makes a good community and a fair legal system?